What would happen if for 30 days you lived by design instead of by habit? It's a simple question, but if you let it sink in, it shakes the foundation of how you've been living. Because whether you realize it or not, you already follow a 30-day cycle. Not one you chose, but one your habits chose for you. And your life today is the result of the choices you've been repeating, often without awareness, almost always without intention. There is a principle I want you to remember from the very beginning. 30 days do not just change your results, they change your identity. Not dramatically, not overnight, but quietly, steadily, like a sculptor chipping away at stone. Every day you wake up, you're becoming someone. With every conversation, every response, every choice, you are either shaping your character or surrendering it to old patterns. The real question is the person you're becoming the person you truly intend to be? Think of each morning as a mirror, not the physical mirror where you check your appearance, but the mirror of your character. Every day it reflects back the person your habits are creating. And too often, we glance at that mirror and look away quickly because we know we're living beneath our potential. We know we're operating on autopilot. We know we're repeating behaviors that undermine the very change we say we want. Let me tell you a small story, one that may feel uncomfortably familiar. A man says he wants to get healthier. He sets goals, watches inspirational videos, even writes a plan. But when the alarm rings, he hits snooze. Just today, he tells himself, he grabs his phone before he gets out of bed, scrolls through messages, answers a few emails, and within minutes, he's already stressed, already behind, already reacting. And by the end of the day, he says, I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, the pattern repeats, not because he lacks desire, not because he lacks intelligence, but because he hasn't changed the invisible habits that guide his life. He wants transformation, but he keeps handing the steering wheel back to his impulses. This is the trap so many fall into. We chase big change while repeating small behaviors that keep us exactly where we are. But here's the truth I want you to hear with calm, confidence, and absolute clarity. Small, consistent choices reshape your character long before they reshape your life. The world focuses on outcomes, but your outcomes are simply the echo of who you've been consistently becoming. If you want a different future, you must first become a different version of yourself. And that begins not with intensity, but with daily intention. So in these next minutes, I'm going to give you a path, a 30-day path, not based on pressure or perfection, but on principles. A path that allows you to step out of old patterns and step into the identity you were meant to grow into. A path that brings your character, your actions, and your values into alignment. If you commit not halfway, not loosely, but wholeheartedly, these 30 days will do more than change what you do. They will change how you think, how you act, how you lead yourself, how you see your life, and ultimately, who you are becoming. This is the 30-day mirror, and starting today, you get to decide what reflection you will create. Most people truly want to change. They want to be more disciplined, more focused, more intentional. They want healthier habits, stronger relationships, deeper purpose. Their desire is real, but desire alone has never transformed anyone. The reason many stay the same year after year is not a lack of motivation. It's that they are held in place by invisible habits, low self-awareness, and emotion-driven attempts at change that have no structure to sustain them. You cannot build a new life on the foundation of old patterns. You know this experience all too well. You wake up determined, but by noon you're in survival mode. In the morning, you tell yourself that today will be different. Today you will be focused, patient, disciplined. But a few hours later, you're reacting to problems, chasing urgency, and repeating the same behaviors you promised you would leave behind. By the evening, you're disappointed in yourself. And by the next morning, you're back at the starting line. Not because you don't care, not because you're weak, but because you're trying to change the outcome without changing the system that produces it. When you repeat 30 days without intention, the consequences begin to accumulate quietly. You experience mental fog, a sense that your mind is constantly cluttered and pulled in different directions. You feel emotionally reactive, as if even small challenges or interruptions can throw you off balance. You start to notice lost opportunities, moments when clarity or courage could have moved you forward, but you didn't act. There is a subtle lack of growth, not because you're not trying, but because your effort is scattered and inconsistent. And perhaps the deepest consequence of all is identity erosion. You slowly stop believing in your own ability to change. Every unkept promise becomes a quiet message to yourself. Maybe I'm just not that person. This leads to a certain kind of toxic self-talk, the kind that sabotages change before it even begins. You've likely heard these phrases in your own mind. That's just who I am. A declaration of resignation, as if your character is fixed and unchangeable, or I'll start tomorrow. A comforting illusion that keeps you trapped in an endless loop of delay. And perhaps the most deceptive one, I don't have time. The truth is not that you don't have time, it's that your time is being consumed by unexamined habits that crowd out what truly matters. These statements are not harmless. They shape your identity. They reinforce the belief that your life is controlled by circumstances rather than choices. They chain you to the very patterns you're trying to escape. And if you allow them to guide your thinking, even unconsciously, the next 30 days will look exactly like the last 30. There is a principle I want you to understand at the core. Your problem is not your behavior. It's the story behind the behavior. Your behavior is just the visible expression of an invisible script, a set of beliefs, assumptions, fears, and habits that run beneath the surface. If you try to change the behavior without rewriting the story, the old pattern will always pull you back. You can force discipline for a day or two, maybe a week, but eventually the subconscious script takes over again. This is why so many people feel stuck. They put in effort, but they don't transform. They fight their behavior when they should be examining the beliefs and unconscious stories driving it. They try to change their results without changing their identity. They rely on motivation instead of structure. And as a result, their change is temporary at best, discouraging at worst. I want to give you a gentle warning, spoken with care and respect. If you don't change the route, 30 days will pass and you'll still be the same person. Not because change is impossible, but because identity cannot be transformed through wishful thinking. It requires awareness. It requires intention. It requires the courage to confront the patterns that have been controlling your life behind the scenes. But here's the good news. Once you understand the real barrier, you can finally remove it. Once you see the invisible habits, you can replace them. Once you recognize the old story, you can write a new one. And once you shift your identity, even slightly, your behavior will follow consistently because it will no longer be forced. It will be who you are becoming. These next 30 days are not about forcing a new life. They are about breaking the old story. And once you do that, the path forward opens in a way it never has before. The next 30 days are not about motivation. Motivation is emotional, unstable, and short-lived. It rises when life feels exciting and collapses when life becomes inconvenient. If you depend on motivation to change, you will fail the moment your feelings shift, which they always will. True transformation doesn't come from emotional spikes, but from alignment. Alignment between who you want to be and what you repeatedly choose to do. Alignment between your values and your behavior. Alignment between the story you tell yourself and the story your life is actually living. There is a principle that lies at the heart of this transformation. Every day, you either strengthen your character or weaken it. Not in dramatic ways, not through heroic effort, but through small choices. Your tone of voice in a moment of stress. Your discipline when no one is watching. Your honesty with yourself about what truly matters. Character is never static. It grows or it decays. And these next 30 days are an opportunity to grow it with intention. To understand how this works, we must return to the 4 inner powers, the gifts that make us uniquely human and give us the ability to shape our lives rather than be shaped by them. The first is self-awareness. This is the ability to step outside your automatic patterns and see yourself clearly. Without self-awareness, change is impossible because you cannot correct what you refuse to recognize. Over the next 30 days, your first task is simply to notice. Notice your triggers. Notice your tone. Notice when you slip into old habits. Awareness itself is a breakthrough. Once you see the pattern, you are no longer enslaved by it. The second power is moral conscience, the quiet inner voice that reminds you of the values you want to embody. Each day, you choose one value to guide your decisions. Patience, courage, service, clarity, discipline, empathy. This is not a slogan, it is a compass. When you align your actions with that value, even imperfectly, you strengthen your character. You begin to act from principle rather than pressure. The third power is imagination, the ability to visualize the person you are becoming. Most people only imagine what they want to have, not who they want to be. But identity precedes outcome. Spend a moment each morning imagining the version of yourself who consistently lives your chosen value. See how you speak, how you respond, how you carry yourself. Your mind will begin to move toward that image, and your actions will begin to reflect it. The fourth power is independent will, the ability to choose the right action, even when it's not the easy action. This is the muscle of character, and like any muscle, it strengthens with use and weakens with neglect. When you keep a promise to yourself, especially when it's difficult, you reinforce the belief that you can trust yourself. Trust becomes confidence, and confidence becomes identity. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone who chooses the value of patience for the next 30 days. At first, it feels uncomfortable. They notice how quickly they interrupt others, how easily they react, how often they rush conversations or judge too soon. But instead of hiding from the pattern, they observe it with self-awareness. They pause when they want to snap. They breathe instead of rushing. They listen instead of interrupting. Gradually, their tone softens. Their relationships shift. Their home becomes calmer. Their children respond differently. Their partner feels heard. And after 30 days, they don't simply act more patient, they are more patient. Their identity has changed. This is the difference between setting a goal and making an inner commitment. A goal says, I want to do something. A commitment says, I will become someone. The first is behavior level. The second is identity level. Goals can fail. Identity, once strengthened, does not. And that brings me to a metaphor that will guide the rest of this journey. Your character is a muscle. For 30 days, we're taking it to the gym. Some days you'll feel strong, other days you won't. But strength isn't built by intensity, it's built by consistency. Each repetition, each small choice, each act of integrity is another weight lifted, another fiber strengthened. These 30 days are not about perfection, they are about alignment. And once you align your actions with your highest values, your life, even in the smallest moments, will begin to reflect the person you were always meant to become. Now that you understand the principle behind transformation, it is time to put it into practice. And practice requires structure. You cannot wake up each day hoping change will happen. You must create a system that makes change inevitable. The next 30 days are not about trying harder. They are about designing your environment, your decisions, and your mindset so that the person you want to become is the natural result of your daily choices. This is the 30-day transformation system, built on 4 simple but powerful pillars. Follow them consistently, and you will not recognize who you are at the end of this journey. 1, the morning identity activation 5 minutes. Every morning begins with a question that shapes your entire day. Who am I choosing to be today? Not what do I have to do, not what's on my schedule, but who am I choosing to be? This question shifts your mind from task to identity, from activity to character. Once you've answered it, choose one guiding value for the day: clarity, patience, courage, focus, kindness, discipline. This value becomes the lens through which you interpret your actions. After choosing your value, take 30 seconds for a micro-visualization. Picture yourself embodying that value in the key moments of your day. If you chose clarity, imagine how you'll respond to a cluttered inbox. Imagine how you'll handle interruptions. Imagine how you will speak in conversations with calm, direction, purpose. Visualize not just the behavior, but the tone, the posture, the presence. This is not fantasy. It is mental rehearsal. And your brain responds to it as if it were already happening. You are programming your identity before your day begins. 2, the one behavior shift. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to change too many habits at once. Complexity kills consistency. Instead, identify one behavior, just one, that will create a domino effect across your life. This is your keystone behavior for the next 30 days. It should be small enough to be doable, but powerful enough to shift your identity. Examples include: stop interrupting during conversations. Plan your day before you check your phone. Speak with intention instead of impulsiveness. 30 days of changing a single behavior does more for your character than 30 attempts to change 10 behaviors at once. Why? Because consistency builds identity. When you repeatedly act in alignment with who you want to be, your brain rewires, your confidence grows, and your self-trust strengthens. And once self-trust grows, larger changes become not only possible, but natural. 3, the accountability anchor. Change does not live in your mind alone. It must live in your environment. That's where the accountability anchor comes in. Choose a physical object, phrase, or mini ritual that reminds you of your commitment the moment your old habits try to pull you back. It can be incredibly simple. One student I worked with placed his notebook on top of his computer keyboard every night. Why? Because he wanted to break the habit of waking up and immediately reacting to messages. With the notebook physically blocking the keyboard, he was forced to plan his day before entering the reactive world of screens. That notebook became his anchor, a physical symbol of who he was choosing to become. Anchors can be anything: a sticky note, a bracelet, a quote on your mirror, a reminder on your desk. What matters is that it interrupts old patterns and redirects you toward your identity. 4, the evening recalibration, 60 seconds. The final pillar of the system is reflection. At the end of each day, ask one simple but powerful question: did I live my value today? This is not a guilt exercise. It is a compass check. Take 60 seconds to observe your day with honesty and self-compassion. Where did you embody your value? Where did you slip? What did you learn about yourself? This micro-audit strengthens awareness and prepares your mind for tomorrow. Focus on progress, not perfection. Transformation is never about flawless execution. It is about steady alignment, small corrections, and daily intention. And if you follow this process consistently, you'll notice something remarkable. Your behavior will start to change even on the days you don't feel motivated. Why? Because you've anchored your identity in principle rather than emotion. Remember this phrase: let it guide your next 30 days. Identity doesn't change with intensity. It changes with consistency. These 4 pillars, practiced daily, will transform not just what you do, but who you believe yourself to be. And once identity shifts, everything else in life begins to shift with it. When you hear about transformation, it's easy to imagine something dramatic or overwhelming: an overnight breakthrough, a sudden burst of discipline, a life-changing moment. But real transformation rarely looks like that. It happens quietly, gradually, through simple daily commitments that accumulate over time. To show you what's possible in the next 30 days, I want to share 3 real stories, ordinary people who applied these principles and experienced extraordinary change. The first is the story of a reactive executive. He lived his life in fast forward, always rushing, always stressed, always responding to crises he didn't create. His mornings began with urgency and ended with exhaustion. When he began the 30-day challenge, he chose one simple practice: a conscious pause. Every time he felt triggered by an email, a meeting, a demanding client, he paused for 5 seconds before responding. At first, it felt unnatural. He had lived years in reactivity, but slowly, the pauses created space to think instead of react, to choose instead of rush. Within 2 weeks, his decisions were clearer. His conversations were calmer. His team noticed the difference before he did. And by day 30, he realized something profound. He was no longer being pushed by his environment, he was guiding it. A single habit, just 5 seconds of awareness, changed the way he led his entire life. The second story is about a mother who felt constantly drained. Her days were filled with tasks, noise, and endless responsibility. She loved her family deeply, but she felt disconnected, always there, yet never fully present. When she began the challenge, she chose the value of presence as her guiding principle. For 30 days, she practiced being fully attentive in short, intentional moments, 5 minutes with her children, undistracted, a patient conversation instead of a hurried one, a silent breath before reacting in frustration. Slowly, her home shifted. Arguments softened. Laughter returned. Her children sensed the difference, and she did too. Presence didn't require more time. It required more awareness. 30 days of living her chosen value transformed her relationships from the inside out. The third story is about a university student who felt scattered and unfocused. He wanted to improve his grades, his habits, his mindset, but every morning he reached for his phone and fell into a spiral of distraction. When he began the challenge, he made a commitment. No morning phone checks for 30 days. The first week was difficult. His mind craved stimulation. But as the days passed, something remarkable happened. His mornings became clearer. He began reading, planning, thinking. His attention span increased. His stress diminished. His academic performance improved not because he studied longer, but because he finally created the mental space to focus. The absence of distraction became a source of strength. Though their situations were different, these three people shared the same pattern of change. Daily commitment. They didn't rely on motivation, they relied on consistency. Reflection. They paid attention to their behavior instead of running on autopilot. Micro actions. They began with small, manageable steps that built momentum. This is the blueprint of transformation. Not grand gestures, not heroic efforts, but small, faithful choices repeated over time. These choices shape your identity, and your identity shapes your future. I want you to hold this idea close. Success is not dramatic. Transformation is the accumulation of small, faithful choices. Transformation is not something you wait for. It's something you practice moment by moment, day by day, choice by choice. And if these ordinary people can change their lives in 30 days, so can you. Your story may look different, but the principles are the same. The next 30 days can become the turning point you've been waiting for. I want you to pause for a moment and imagine the version of yourself that could emerge in just 30 days. Not a perfect version, not a superhuman version, a truer version, someone more centered, more confident, more intentional. Someone who leads their life instead of being led by impulse or circumstance. Someone who acts with purpose, speaks with clarity, and moves through each day guided by their values rather than their emotions. That version of you is not far away. It is waiting on the other side of your next decision. Over these past minutes, we've walked through principles that can reshape not just your habits, but your identity. And identity is the true engine of transformation. When you commit to living deliberately for 30 days, you begin to cultivate a kind of inner strength that cannot be faked or forced. It is the strength that comes from honoring your values, from keeping your promises, from aligning your behavior with the person you want to become. Bit by bit, your confidence grows not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. I want to remind you of something essential. Your future is formed by the choices you repeat. Not the choices you intend to make, not the ones you talk about, but the ones you live consistently. The next 30 days will be filled with opportunities, small, subtle, everyday moments where you either reinforce your old identity or reinforce your new one. And each time you choose character over habit, awareness over autopilot, intention over impulse, you shape a different future. So here is the invitation, spoken with clarity and conviction. For 30 days, live deliberately. Choose your character first. Not convenience, not comfort, not routine, character. Because character is the foundation upon which meaningful change is built. It is the compass that steadies you when life is turbulent. It is the anchor that keeps you aligned when distractions pull at you. Choosing character is choosing your deepest self. As you take this commitment into your life, Let this final affirmation become your quiet anchor. Say it slowly, let it resonate, let it settle into your identity. In the next 30 days, I will rise from my values, not my habits. This is not just a declaration. It is a promise to yourself, a promise to live intentionally, to practice awareness, to honor your chosen values, and to step each day into the identity you are shaping. And remember, transformation is not loud. It is patient, steady, and faithful. The person you will become at the end of these 30 days will not appear suddenly, but gradually, through the accumulation of small choices that reflect who you truly are. When you are ready, I invite you to continue this journey with me. In the next video, we will explore how to build habits that reinforce your purpose, how to design a life aligned with principle, and how to lead yourself with clarity even in moments of uncertainty. For now, begin. One value, one choice, one day at a time.